Hello and welcome back to Podium Pop. My name is Celine and I am here with my co-host Gracie. On today's episode, we are racing again for the second race of the doubleheader, and we are in China. Before we get started on the race recap, make sure you go follow us on social media. We post on TikTok and on Instagram, and we post our episodes every week on Spotify and on YouTube. Let's go ahead. Let's pop the bottle. Let's get right on into it.
No, let's pop this bottle because it's been a week.
It's been a week,
yeah,
and it's been a busy one.
It has been really busy. So to start the race weekend off, when cars were being transported over from Australia, there was a delay in shipment. So a couple cars and teams were having some issues with that delay in shipment. Actually, Kim Illman reported this to us. Mm-hmm. So those teams were McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Aston Martin. So people were like, what's going to happen? These teams are going to, have longer nights getting these cars prepared, everything prepared. And, it ended up working out well for everybody, but I'm sure they had, a lot of long nights to get this car ready.
Yeah, everything was fine in the end. Yeah. But for a lot of times, we didn't know when the cars would be getting there. It was a big question mark for quite a few days.
Yeah, and it was, this was, Wednesday, I believe. Mm-hmm. Tuesday, Wednesday, and we were like, the cars?
Yeah, I think the cars actually arrived Tuesday night.
Oh, yeah.
And then, which it had, a whole, day and a half less of time to, prep and get everything set up. Yeah, that's crazy. It was scary, though.
No, it was really
because,
scary.
With that many teams, obviously, if it affected one team, that would really suck. But with it affecting so many teams, what would they do?
No, I know. That's such a good question. I wonder if they would have lifted,
the curfew?
The curfew.
Yeah.
Actually, did they lift the curfew? I think they might have. I didn't take a note of that, but I feel like I saw that they might have.
Yeah, maybe.
And then also at the beginning of the weekend, we were hearing all about the rear wing drama. So basically the FIA has come in and said from Australia to China, they are changing up the rules on the rear wing, that little flexi wing, mini DRS, the gap. And a lot of people, of course, were like, the McLaren's illegal, the McLaren's illegal.
Everyone was talking about McLaren. And it wasn't even McLaren.
It wasn't even McLaren.
It was Alpine.
No, literally.
And you could tell.
There were also a lot of people going off, and then some people were like, hey, your team is doing the same thing, by the way.
No, literally.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Everyone was quick to say that it was McLaren. Obviously, I get why.
No,
because
I get why.
Honestly, if you would have said that 2 years ago, everyone would have said Red Bull.
Yeah.
They're always going to say that is why the fastest car on the track.
And they had, they were saying it after Baku as well last year.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be completely fair, I get it.
And
I would have not bat an eye if everyone was like, it was Red Bull's wing. I was like, I bet it was.
I bet it was.
But because I'm a McLaren fan, I'm going to be offended by it, and I'm going to be a bit of a hater, and haters going to hate.
Haters going to hate.
Let me hate,
Absolutely.
Is that a double standard? Yes. I never claimed to be the perfect person.
It's called being a sports fan.
It's called being a sports fan.
Literally.
Exactly. But it wasn't the McLaren.
No, it wasn't. We were fine, and then even Lando came into the weekend and was like, no, we're fine. We could change it up a bit still, and we would still be fine.
Yeah, he was like, we're actually playing it safe.
Yeah.
We actually could push it more than this.
Yeah. And then, of course, that set people off again, which I love that, though.
No,
every time Lando does something and it makes people mad, and I'm like, okay.
Again, haters gonna hate on the other side of it, too, so... but yeah, so everyone was kind of anticipating to see how McLaren was going to do for the weekend, and I will say that there was some adjustments that needed to be made. Kind of a bit of a spoiler. The weekend started out pretty. It was good, but it wasn't as
Lando.
Yeah, but I think the whole team in general, it wasn't as good as people were anticipating coming from Australia into China. So that was kind of something to note as well.
Also, Lando said this week that he was like, the car is fast, but it's also difficult to drive. And then people were like, what, those two things can be true at once. Yeah. The car can be super fast, and it can be hard to drive. Lando even said, I've stopped asking for things that suit my driving style and started accepting, what's going to make the car faster.
Right.
So he's still adapting to these changes that they've made.
He's basically saying, I know that the way that I want the car to be set up for my driving style is going to make it slow. Yeah. So I'm going to accept that it's going to be fast, and I'm going to accept that it's going to make it more difficult for me to drive.
Yeah.
And that's actually completely normal. Because, not Max, because he's a madman, but, other Red Bull drivers in the past, with Checo, and then Liam, all this stuff, for the car to be quick, it's difficult to drive, and you see that completely with Red Bull as an example.
Well, even Max, like, they asked Max about it, and Max was, at first, he was like, what? He was, like, saying something about it, and he was like, well, I complained about the car the entire time last year, and I still won the championship, so. Yeah. Like, even Max was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I think it was fine.
Yeah, I think it's totally fine.
But it was a sprint weekend, first sprint weekend of the season.
Yeah.
Do we have anything before we get into sprint?
No, let's get into the sprint.
Okay.
All in the middle of the night.
Okay, yeah, so another thing to know, because it was in China and we are in America on Eastern time zone, it was some late nights / early mornings / middle, like, worst time possible. Like, it was unfortunately in the time that, like, you don't know if it's more effective to stay awake or to wake up early.
No, for me, I think falling asleep and then waking back up and then going back to bed was the best, because I didn't watch any of the race live because I fell asleep. Yeah. Went and rewatched it this morning.
It was rough. Every year, we say we can do it. Last year we fell asleep.
No, like,
I think we fell asleep during Japan last year though.
No, it was China.
Was it China?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate, and we also slept through the.
No, the national anthem started, and then I was like, okay, I've got this, and then. Boom.
I made it to lap 10.
No, I did not make it far at all.
So let's go ahead and get into the sprint.
Yeah,
so sprint quali, it was pretty standard. I will say that Lewis was looking really quick, and the McLarens were struggling a bit in Q3. Like, to really pull out the final, like, sprint qualifying, Lewis looked a lot quicker, and actually Ferrari in general was looking much stronger than McLaren in the sprint quali, which had me a bit worried.
No, me too.
It had me extremely worried. I was stressed out. It ended up being Lewis on pole, Max in second, and Oscar in third. And then it was Charles, George, Lando, Kimi, Yuki. That was the top 8. And again, something to note, as in a sprint race, only the top 8 get points.
Yep.
So it's not in a normal race the top 10, but in a sprint only top 8. But kind of another note is Alex made it to Q3 again. And we're going to see kind of a trend with this, but Alex, like, just kind of putting into perspective where he was last year at this point, where Williams was last year at this point, it kind of makes you wonder, like, what was that?
Oh, I was just showing my Williams sweatshirt.
Oh. I thought we were doing a little dance.
No, just showing my support.
Okay. Yeah. It does make you wonder, like, yes, Williams has been struggling the last couple of years, but then looking at where McLaren was at the beginning of 2023, but even the beginning of 2024, versus where they ended the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could the same happen to Williams? I mean, they get upgrades throughout the year, and then the second half, maybe they have a similar season to McLaren did in 2023, where they don't win the constructors, but they still,
like, mid-season, a big upgrade. Yeah, I also think it's also going to take, while Carlos is learning how to drive this car and figuring all this out, I think, like, once that, towards the end of the year, I think for sure. Yeah,
definitely. But it's just exciting to see, because Williams has been, this is what they've been hoping for pretty much every year the last, like, 5 or 6 years. Like, that's what they've been kind of hyping up and talking about. And they anticipated for that fully to be 2026. And if they stick to the same McLaren timeline of starting in 2023, but Williams in 2025, they would win the Constructors' Cup in 2026.
We'll have to see what happens.
Which would be...
Well, but new regulations are coming in, and you never know how that's going to go.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But they've always said 2026. Maybe they know something we don't.
Ooh, what do they know?
What do they know? James Vowles
up to?
What are you doing?
He's a sneaky little lad.
He is a sneaky little lad.
Yeah,
I don't trust him completely, and I don't think I ever will again. He broke my heart once.
Yeah.
He broke my heart twice. I'll never trust him from Australia 2024.
No.
Sorry.
No.
Never trusting that man again. Yeah, never trusting a man again after that.
Seriously.
He literally ruined everything for me.
So hard. Like, we can trust him. He's okay. And then he just broke our heart.
Yeah, he just broke our hearts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sprint quali was pretty good. Another thing to note, which we still don't really know what this means, but, you know, Lewis and his race engineer there's been talks in the media about how they're just struggling with communication a bit, specifically in Australia. But they had a really cute moment whenever Lewis qualified for pole. He said San Diego, which we don't really know what that means.
Yeah.
But it was just really cute because, like, he literally was like San Diego, and Lewis was like, really? It was like instantly they knew. So it had to have been something like an inside joke or something they talked about. But it was a really cute moment between them. And I think that they kind of needed that. I think Lewis needed that.
Yeah.
To say like, hey, like, almost like reassure himself that like, I made the right decision switching to Ferrari.
Yeah.
Which I don't think he ever questioned because it's Ferrari.
Well, yeah,
like, let's be honest. But with last race, Mercedes looking so strong, I mean, there had to be a little bit in his mind being like, is Mercedes going to have a championship content? Like, a car that's, like, able to, you know, fight for a championship, and is Ferrari not? Well, that's a bit of a spoiler. But yeah, so it was a cute moment for sprint quali. And then the sprint race.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nico Hülkenberg did start from the pit for the sprint race. And all in all, I think one thing to sum up the sprint race is there's a lot of rookie-on-rookie crime going on.
There was so much.
I have my notes here, and let me just read them out to you, right? So, and I know Liam isn't considered a rookie, but he in this instant, I'm counting him as rookie. So, first lap, rookie Liam makes contact with Jack Doohan. And then Isaac and Gabby are closely battling.
Yeah,
Isaac
that was good.
It was good battling too.
It was great battling.
It was, and just knowing their history.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So Isaac and Gabby battling, Isaac and Liam battling, Isaac and Ollie battling. Meanwhile, Kimmy's just chilling.
No, Kimmy was I don't need to be up in there.
Kimmy's up with the big dogs, and Kimmy's like, I'm going to stay out of that rookie drama.
No, I don't need to be in that.
And the final thing to kind of, you know, top off the rookie drama is in the last lap. Like, literally, they're like corners from the finish line. Jack has an incident with Gabby. Jack basically takes Gabby out.
The whole scenes of this was hilarious.
And so, which, yeah, it was giving, like, the wicked.
No, yeah.
But that kind of not only messes up Gabby's race, but it also, Nico has to kind of, like, navigate around that. Carlos kind of slides right past it. He says, excuse me. He's going to sneak by. But it ultimately made it to where Jack did finish in 20th. Gabby was able to stay in 18th.
Like, the rookie-on-rookie crimes were heavy in sprint race.
Rookie-on-rookie.
And I think, like, it also... Obviously, there's only one full practice session. They're figuring out... Like, Carlos used this sprint race basically as an FP2.
Yes.
So he was like, nah, not worried about it.
Let me just like use this for data.
Don't box during a sprint race. You don't pit at all. It's kind of the whole point. You just run this race and see what points you can get. And then he had to, I guess they realized he was so far back. They, pitted him. They're like, let's just figure out some data from this. Like, you're not going to score points.
Yeah, they're like, let's count our losses and let's get some positives out of this. Another thing to note is during the sprint race, the Ferraris were managing their tires really well. And once again, they were looking really strong with race pace because of that. There's a lot of tire degradation.
Tough word.
It was tough. Around China and around this track. And so they kind of were anticipating that going into the weekend. But Ferrari were looking really strong with managing their tires. So that's something to note.
The track had also just been resurfaced. It was a brand new surfaced track.
Yes.
And there were support series there, but it wasn't like they were having F2, F3 running before them. Correct. So it's kind of like they were just going...
F1 Academy was there, though.
Well, F1 Academy was there, yeah, absolutely.
So the final standings for the sprint race, Lewis won. Oscar was able to overtake Max, which was a beautiful overtake.
It was beautiful.
It was like kind of a long time coming, and it really came down to like tire wear.
Yeah.
But Oscar was able to overtake Max, so Oscar got second, correct? Max got third. And then the rest of it was, so Lewis, Oscar, Max. Then it was George in fourth, Charles in fifth, Yuki in sixth, which is a great for Yuki. Kimmy in seventh, and Lando in eighth. So Lando was pretty far back from the first lap.
Struggling from the beginning. He went off a bit and then dropped down immediately, opening corner.
Down to ninth.
Yeah, and then he just was like struggling with his tires so much.
He was stuck behind Lance for a very long time.
And I was like, what do you mean we can't get past an Aston Martin right now?
Yeah. Well, the issue is that whenever he had that issue in the first lap, he dipped his wheel into the tires, so his tires were already kind of like messed up after that.
Like, yeah,
and again, like people don't pit during the sprint race. It's pretty much if you pit, you're not finishing in points. So he was like, I can either like stick with these tires that are damaged, or I can pit and be out of the points. So obviously he kept his tires. Yeah. But it made it really difficult for him to overpass Lance. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he was just like not able to do it. There was definitely a reason why.
Yeah, for sure.
But he spent pretty much the whole race trying to even catch up, and eventually near the end he does overtake Lance. Mm-hmm. And he makes it into the points.
It's just like a tough watch, I'll be honest.
It was a tough watch for a McLaren fan. And like it's so hard because again, like Oscar literally came second. It was double points.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's so like, hard to like...
It was like two sides of the same coin. Being so happy for Oscar overtaking Max, getting the second, and then being like, Lando struggled. Yeah. Yeah.
And again, like, it would still be, I would say, a successful race weekend because they obviously... Or successful race because they got a lot of data from it.
Yeah, for sure.
And they were able to figure out, like, okay, why was Oscar's car so competitive and Lando's not, other than the tire issues. But, like, it's hard to remember that, like, we should be happy with those results at the end of the day. Yeah. We're just so, like, now, unfortunately, we're spoiled, so we're like, where's the McLaren one, too?
Yeah, for sure.
Where is it?
Yeah. We also need to talk about what Lewis did during the race, because towards the beginning... So Lewis got, like, the lead right away, and towards the beginning, couple laps in, Max was closing the gap. Mm-hmm. And we were like, oh, man, is this going to be a battle between Max and Lewis? We were like, what's going on? And then he got closer. Max did. It didn't work, and then he started, like, falling back. Like, Lewis finished with a 6-second lead, and basically what Lewis did there was Lewis slowed down his pace and, like, gave Max the hope that he could pass, which ruined Max's tires. Yeah. And that's how Oscar was able to pass.
Yeah. I feel like thanks, Lewis.
Yeah, thank you. Like, Oscar probably could have made that pass, but also, like, Lewis doing that, like, it was so... Yeah.
It was, like, very telling, like, that, like, yes, that is a 7-time world champion.
Yeah, like, for sure. He knew what he was doing.
He's experienced enough. Like, he's been around the block a time or two.
Yeah, absolutely.
He actually is the only 40-plus-year-old person to score... Or to win a race since Nigel Mansell.
What a statistic. And
what someone to be compared to. Like,
oh my god, yeah.
Okay, old man. Stop. He's not even that old. But no, he had an amazing race.
Great race.
There was one point, like, midway through the race where he was complaining about, like, left tire drag a little bit. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like, he kind of stayed in his own lane. Like, it was during that time, and it very well could have been him complaining about tire drag because the tires didn't look that bad at the end. It very well could have been like him saying it over the race radio in order to once again kind of get in Max's head saying, hey, you got a chance here.
Yeah, for sure.
Mess up your tires.
There was like a lot of that this weekend, I feel like.
Yeah, there's a lot of sneaky stuff going on.
You do hear a bit how they're like, oh, we like heard from this team, that team, but I feel like a lot, especially with during the Grand Prix, like the one stop, two stop. So I was loving it.
Yeah, it was good. Like, and it once again like just shows like Formula One is when it comes down to it about the driving, but it's so much more than that.
Oh, it's so much.
Strategy is literally everything. Yeah, and that literally extends to like radio messages and what you do and don't say over the radio.
Yeah, I mean they have like a whole team of people listening to other radios. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'd like that job.
I would love that job.
Be like, what's the gossip?
Come on. Yeah, no, that's my ideal job. That's my ideal job.
But yeah, amazing sprint race, first one of the season.
First Ferrari Lewis win.
Yep. First Ferrari Lewis win was special, so.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, should we move on to qualifying?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So qualifying Q1, let's start there.
Yeah.
Already kind of started out not great. Jack did slide off in the first push lap. Mm-hmm. Buses were very early in the session.
Yeah.
And Lando had a good lap. Time got deleted. A lot of struggling going on.
That happened. Well, okay, double-sided for sure. So that happened, and I was like, damn, is this gonna continue in from the sprint race? Lando, not just doing well so far. And then I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? Lando does this sometimes.
He does.
Sometimes he goes out, does one lap, it gets deleted, it's not the best, like he's, down there at the bottom.
He's on our toes.
And then he'll come out again and boop, P1.
Boom.
He literally, like, he does that. So I was like, you know what? I'm actually not worried.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't too stressed either.
No.
Eventually, after Q1, it was it was Pierre, Ollie, Jack, Gabby, and Liam that got out. Liam qualified in last.
Mm-hmm.
Eek. We'll talk about that later.
We will be talking about that.
And it was actually Gabby's first time, one, not making it to Q2, but it was also his first time of the season, which only there's been a couple, but first time of the season that he was out-qualified by Nico. Crazy. Yeah. I think Gabby is really, I mean, again, we're a little biased here. We love Gabby Bortoletto. But I think he's really coming in and proving that he can be competitive in the kick Sauber that, like, I think a lot of people just counted them out.
Immediately. I mean, like, we did too, kind of. We were like, it's a Sauber.
Absolutely. We were like, well, like, no pressure for Gabby because it's a Sauber, but he's actually proving, like, hey, we can do something with this. Like, sure. I'm not going to use that as a crutch or an excuse, which I think is awesome.
And he has a really great racing mentality. I love it.
Yeah. Yep. So, Q2, Lando does set not only the fastest lap in the session, but he also, at this point in time, set the fastest lap on the track of all time. Yeah. Which is really cool. Doesn't last very long, but that's an okay thing.
Also, Lewis said it during this sprint.
Yes. Yeah. So it literally was set 3 times.
It's set 3 different times. So we have 1, 2.
Yes. Then VCARB was doing really, really good during the qualifying. They were really strong pretty much all weekend until the race.
Poor strategy. We'll talk about that for sure.
But Lando ended up getting first for Q2. And Esteban, Nico Hülkenberg, Fernando, Lance, and Carlos were the ones that dropped out after Q2. Then Q3. Again, it starts out kind of rough. Kimi dips his toe into gravel on the last corner. It kicks up a lot of gravel, which, is always not great. It makes the track really slippy. But Oscar, Mr. Oscar Piastri,
oh my gosh,
comes out and just puts in an amazing lap.
Amazing.
And that is the 3rd time that weekend that the fastest lap of all time is set. Yeah. At this track. So he broke that record, and everyone else was times were coming in near the end. They weren't even touching Oscar's time.
Well, no, and then so Oscar set that time very fast. I forget what it was, and then he comes around again to do another lap, and he has yellow sector, and it's like, oof, man, like Lando's right behind him, George is right behind him. We know they're quick. Oscar's 3rd sector. He improved his 3rd sector so well that he improved his overall time again. It was like, it was insane. It was 3 a.m. and I was trying so hard not to scream.
Something was in his bones. No, something was in his blood. He
was fired up from last weekend.
He was fired. You could tell he was coming. He was like, you know what, a second in sprint, that's not going to do it for me.
He said no.
He said, excuse me, I need more. He said, Sharpay Evans, I want more.
I need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the final qualifying order, I'm going to just run through it real quick. Yeah. We had P1, Oscar on pole, and then George and Lando. In 4th was Max, 5th was Lewis, 6th Charles, 7th Isaac, Slay, 8th Kimi, 9th Yuki, and 10th Alex Albon.
Like, once
Q3.
Again. Great birthday
again. For him. Yeah, it was his birthday weekend. Yeah. Happy birthday, Alex.
Happy birthday, Alex Albon.
Fantastic. Isaac out-qualified Yuki, which is great. It doesn't happen all the time. I would say right now they kind of go back and forth without qualifying each other.
Yeah, they're doing good.
They're both doing really good. But Isaac, for a rookie, like, once again, I'm so impressed with the rookies in general, but, like, specifically, like, in all kind of different tiers.
Yes.
They're all, not all of them, actually. Majority of them are doing really good.
Yeah, majority are doing great.
Some of them have some bad luck, Jack. It's an Alpine. But, like, in all of their, like, different spots where they are, like, Kimi is doing fantastic in the Mercedes, so he is battling up near the front. Gabby is down in the Sauber, but he's still pushing it to the limit.
Yeah, for sure.
He's still getting the most out of it that he can, and Isaac is right there with his teammate for every session, except for the race.
It
happens. Crash on formation lap. Let's forget about it.
It was a week ago.
It was a whole week ago.
Yeah,
let's move on. But no, I think Isaac is doing really, really good. He's really strong.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
doing great.
Doing great.
All right, should we get into the race?
Let's get into the race.
Oh, also to say, after the Parc Ferme rules, like with the car and the setups are different for a sprint weekend. So after the sprint race, the cars were a lot of people changed. A lot of teams changed setups. Mm-hmm. So I think that changing the setups, like, really helped McLaren.
Yeah,
and didn't help other teams.
No,
not
it
at
didn't.
all.
Again, something to note that the race was at 3 a.m. So neither of us watched it live. I watched parts of it. That night, and then I watched a couple like clips of it in the morning, but Gracie ended up rewatching the whole thing in the morning. Yeah. So she's the expert on what happened during the actual race.
Thank you.
So take it away.
Yeah. I also just my notes are so funny. I woke up and I woke up at 4 a.m. and I had like 50 Twitter notifications, and the only people I have notifications on for are Chris Medland, McLaren, Oscar, and Lando. So I was like, something either really, really good happened or really bad. And I was like immediately swiping out because I knew I wanted to watch the race spoiler free. And then I texted you, and I used Siri to text you, and I was like, okay, I just woke up, I'm about to start watching the race, like something, and then you called me and you were like, don't look at social media. Like, whatever you do, don't, like, call me after the race, don't look at social media. And I was like, okay, what is, so the whole time I'm watching the race, like, I'm on edge. I don't, like,
because keep in mind, this is like, she woke up maybe like,
I think I started
6 hours after
I started watching
the race
at 10.
started. Yeah.
So, let's get started, shall we?
Yep.
So the race starts, and most of the grid is starting on medium tires, and there are a few people like Lance and Ollie who are starting on the hards. Mm-hmm. Big note for the race weekend.
Yeah, Liam is also starting from the pit, even though he's already near the back. So they don't matter that much. Yeah, Red Bull tried to, change his setup a lot. So when you do that, after like a certain time, you change the setup so much, you have to start from pit lane. Mm-hmm. So he was doing that. They were trying to change the setup to see, test some things out. See what's going on, see if maybe he could suit him better. We'll talk about it at the end. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. So in the beginning, Oscar keeps the lead. That was really great. Lando got in front of George. Once again, as a McLaren fan, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Absolutely loving it. In the very beginning, Max dropped down to 6th, which, watching that, like, I do love Max too so much. I was like, okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
And this is all opening lap. Charles and Lewis make contact, and Charles has front wing damage because of it. And Max saw that and immediately popped on his radio and said, Charles has front wing damage.
He said,
happy to report.
Yeah. There was a lot of snitching going on.
No, a lot of snitching.
Oh, like, they are just like, it's so funny.
No, it is so
it's
funny.
So funny.
And then on lap 2, we see Gabby go into pit, and literally I just have question marks all over my notes. We eventually find out that he went off the racing line a little bit, trying to pass, pushing too hard, and then he spun off. Very, very sad. And then we have another case of snitching because Fernando's brakes catch on fire. Yep. And Pierre pops on the radio and says, Fernando's brakes are on fire. Like, what is going on? His brakes catching on fire ended up in him having to retire from the race, and he did not look happy.
No, I mean, because...
Okay, so then around lap 14, which this was expected, the pit cycle started, and it started with Pierre. And then... out up front, Lewis, Max, George, and Oscar were all the first to pit up front, so they went from those mediums to the hard tire.
This is right around the time I fell asleep.
Yeah. And then going in the next lap later after Oscar pits, Lando and Charles go in at the same time. Coming out of the pits, Lando does lose his position to George, and what was so funny is George is trying to get on by, and Lance Stroll is like right there. It is just hilarious for me, like... George and Lando are trying to figure this out, and Lance is just kind of in the way.
Lance is like, hey guys!
And Lance is like,
he's there for the vibes.
Lance is like, hey, actually, I don't care that you all are trying to battle after pitting. I am still here on my hard tires going strong, and I'm going to be in this mix right now.
Exactly.
It was so good, I'll be honest. And then, because of everybody pitting, Alex Albon was leading for a little bit.
Woohoo! Happy birthday!
On lap 17, he was leading with no pitting. Not pitting yet because of those hard tires. And then on lap 18, Oscar does pass Alex. Lando passes George. Looking strong here. And then, so as this is happening around like lap 20, the talks of a one stop are coming in. Because we're seeing that data from specifically like Lance for sure. We're seeing all this data from him on that hard tire. He was going strong.
Yeah.
He was looking great on those hards. So people were like, oh, can we make this a one stop race?
Which is crazy because tire deck had been a huge topic of conversation all weekend.
Yeah.
And for now, them to be considering it a one stop race is kind of insane.
Yeah, like you can go in with all the data, all the track data from the race weekend, but it really depends on when it starts.
Yeah, it's so dependent on time, wind, temperature, like anything. So like you could come in so prepared, and that's why again strategy is so important. Absolutely. And how like I don't know, like things can change instantly, and you have to like completely throw your plan out the window and be like, all right, let's get to the drawing board.
Yeah, we have to do something else. In my notes, I love doing just like a bunch of question marks, bunch of hearts, bunch of everything. So I said Ferrari team orders with probably like 12 question marks here, and then I said but Lance is in the way again.
Because I think you're referencing again. I didn't watch the whole race, but I think you're referencing whenever they said for Charles to go ahead of Lewis.
Yes.
But Lewis literally said before those team orders were given, Lewis literally said on the radio, "Let Charles go ahead of me. He's quicker than me."
Oh, I didn't.
And
hear
Toto
that.
Fred even brings that up.
Oh, I don't remember hearing that while watching the race. I don't think they broadcasted on the race.
Yeah, so I saw it after the race on social media, but it was like literally like a video of it, and it was like him being like, "Let him go ahead of me."
Lewis didn't seem happy though.
Well, yeah, because it was a couple laps later that they eventually took. So I'm sure he changed his mind. But
yeah. So Charles was kind of like, I have the pace, I'm quicker, like, let me go through. So the Ferrari team orders came in, like, Lance got in the way again, and then they were too far apart. It just didn't happen for a while. But as this is happening on lap 19, Alex is called in to pit, but he does not pit until lap 21. So he went for a bit longer, or they were delayed and showing it. I don't really know what happened there.
Or they were being tricky.
For sure. And then, once again, they're still talking about the swap, Ferrari. And then they finally do swap, and Lewis goes ahead of Charles. And I wrote my notes, I said Lewis does not sound happy, which probably is why, because it was taking so long. And then, just a note, around lap 21, Oscar had a 4.4 second lead on Lando, which, that's a big gap. And then I wrote lap 23, Lance still has not pit. You guys already know.
Cooking.
Like, if you're watching that, I'm a fan of Lance. So I just was loving him this weekend.
Which is also really nice because we had some friends. I say we, you don't live with me.
No.
I had some friends over Saturday night, like, before the race. And there were a lot of Lance haters there.
No, they're all Lance haters.
And
I was like, you guys are...
One thing about me is that I wouldn't consider myself, like, Lance's biggest fan, but I will never be a Lance hater.
No.
Because I won't betray Gracie that way.
Thank you.
But, like, there were a lot of Lance haters
One of my friends looked me dead in the eyes and was like, why are you a Lance sympathizer? And I was like, okay, Keith is good, okay, you guys? And then I literally was like, I'm not going to do this right now or else I will turn this into an hour-long conversation. And they were like, we don't have to. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. And then I also made a note that, like, Lewis and his engineer are still trying to figure out their communications. We obviously talked about it a bit earlier.
San Diego.
It's to be expected, honestly, you guys. And
yeah.
also, like, I'm, like, almost positive this was Carlos's engineer before, just how Kimi has Bono. And, like, somebody I put it on Twitter was like, Carlos was a yapper. Carlos was a yapper over the radio. Like, Lewis is not, like, it's obvious how they're different in that. So just trying to figure it out, honestly. Like, literally nothing to
panic about.
No, seriously.
Give him some time. Give him more than a race and a half.
No, genuinely. And then there are points where Ollie was trying to overtake Lance, but Ollie did lock up. And then Charles had come over the radio talking about how Mercedes had tons of grip. He was like, I don't know what's going on, but Mercedes, their grip is insane. And then Ollie finally then pits on lap 27. Once again, Ollie was on those hard tires and he switched to the medium. It's lap 30 and Lance still had not pit, but he was setting his personal best times for the race.
Insane.
Like, come on.
Lance Stroll, the man that you are.
30 lap old hard tires. And he was doing
30 lap old hard tires. That literally should be the name of his biography.
30 lap old hard tires.
It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, that is.
30 lap old hard tires.
That's like a old metal band that your dad sets up. Like,
where is it? Now Music featuring
30
music from 30 lap old hard tires.
Absolutely. Okay, and you guys, Ollie Behrman, this race. He passed, I start typing in all caps at this point. He passed Liam and he hit him with a ciao.
Ollie.
No, like I'm loving it. It was so good. And then his pass on Liam was really, really good. So this is when we get in to Lando and his race and everything that goes wrong with his brakes. I'm going to tell the same chronological order from my notes.
Okay.
Because we were all a little confused in the beginning of everything happening. So, Lando... Oh, this isn't brakes yet. I apologize. This is about pace. Lando was asked by Will to use more of his pace, and then Lando responded saying that he didn't want to get up in Oscar's dirty air. And then, literally, a couple seconds later, McLaren, Oscar's engineer came over and was like, can you speed up a bit? So, great teamwork by the team. And then, because they're trying to clear off George and Charles weren't that far behind. Like, at this point, they're running like 2 to 4 seconds behind them, kind of. George being in the lead of that, so they're trying to clear them off as much as possible. And then they come over to Lando plan C, and then Lando once again is like, I do not want to be in Oscar's dirty air, can you please tell him to speed up? Like, I don't want to do my tires on this, and then Oscar does speed up. And then on lap 34, this is when more snitching comes in from the teams, and McLaren is telling Lando that they're telling George to go finish the race on these hard tires, so a one stop. So we did have a lot of radio messages coming over from Lando and his engineer. So he came over and said, this part of the race is a waiting game, and then towards the end of the race, if everything's looking right, like tires, fuel, all that jazz, then he can have a go at Oscar, basically saying, like, let's wait this out, we don't want to use our tires up too much, we're still kind of like midway through this race. This is making so much sense. Once again, you guys, it makes so much sense, okay? The way also in Will's radio message when he said have a go, he was like, then you can have a go. He's like stuttering his way through that. And in my note, I said, why is everyone, including me, scared of the McLarens battling?
Yeah, he was terrified. He was like, have a go, but like, be nice to each other, please.
Okay, so then this is when Will comes over the radio and is telling Lando about rain. And I was like, why are we not seeing anybody else hearing about this? I was like, what? And then also he's saying like, class 0.5, which is like no rain, last lap, like we need to be careful, chance of this. And literally the whole time I'm sitting there, once again, I have not looked at any social media. I haven't looked at anything. I was like, I'm so confused right now. What is going on? I did write in all caps, rain, there might be rain, I'm gonna lose it. And then I made another note about Lance doing so well on his tires. What is that, note 4 now? I'm gonna keep talking about it. And then Ollie, I forget who he passes. I didn't write that down. Ollie gave another ciao though.
Carlos, right?
It was Carlos. He gave another ciao. That's 2 chows from Ollie.
2 chows.
I said I love this kid. And then finally on lap 37, Lance does pit for the medium tires. And then GP comes over the radio telling Max he's doing well and to keep it up, slowly gearing him up to make a pass onto Charles because Max was running behind Charles in 5th place. And then on lap 39, Lando starts to get a bit of grading. He says he feels okay, and then he asks how Oscar and George are doing, and then they say that Oscar and George have no grading compared to Lando. But Lando said it was feeling fine. And then finally on lap 39, Oscar says that he can go to the end. This is a 56th lap race. So this one stop is really coming into play. And then Ollie and Pierre are having a battle on lap 40. And this is when I'm sitting here and I'm like, Ollie, say the ciao. Say ciao.
Say it, please. Say it to the man that started it.
Yeah, absolutely. He did not say ciao. Even the commentators were like, give us a ciao.
They're like, this is the one we've been waiting for.
Yeah, no, it was
that's
so
a little,
good.
you know what Ollie said? That's a little too on the nose. I want to be unpredictable.
No.
I'm going to keep my mouth shut for this one.
Me too. Also, did you see Ollie's dad's reaction to him passing Pierre?
No, I didn't, but you mentioned it.
It was so cute. Also, Ollie's dad sitting in that Haas garage, okay? Ample TVs, ample radios, ample everything for him to watch. He still had his phone up watching the race. It's so cute.
He's a simple man.
No, like he said, I will be watching on my little device.
He said, I need to be up close and personal.
No, and that is so fair. And then at this point, I wrote Haas double points, question mark, and little did I know. Spoiler. Let's get into it and talk about this Racing Bull strategy, because what do you mean they did this well in qualifying and they're running, like, at this point, when I watched, I think it was 17th and 18th.
Yeah.
What is wrong? Like, what are we doing here?
Listen, I think that Racing Bulls is going to run into the same issue that kind of McLaren did last year, where they are such a competitive team, but they are not used to being as competitive as of a team.
I agree.
And to have that much pressure on the strategy that they call, and to have that much pressure on being up there with the Ferraris and the McLarens and the Red Bulls and the Mercedes, that I think that they're going to have to learn how to be a top contending team if they want to continue with this growth, because they have been. The car has the pace.
Yeah, absolutely.
The drivers have the pace. The drivers are fantastic. An amazing lineup. I think, honestly, if you were to put this same lineup that RB has in one of the top contender teams, like, they would be one of the stronger lineups.
Yeah, for sure.
They are both such fantastic drivers. If
they
you all
well
can't tell,
together.
I said this on the last episode, I'm very much so in my Isaac and Yuki era right now.
You really are.
I love them. They are fantastic, but if you don't have a good strategy, well, you can count yourself out of the points.
Yeah, for sure. So they've got to figure that out. And I feel like they will. I feel like they will.
Yeah.
Because realizing how strong their pairing is. Make another little tick on your counter, because I talked about Lance and his tires again.
Here we go.
So I made a note that Lance was doing so well on the hard tire, it was giving everybody else such good information and helping them be able to decide to go ahead and do that one stop with the hard tire. Once again, Max was told his pace is great, and then this was basically GP telling him, go ahead, you can push to go overtake Charles. Now we are on to lap 43, again on the times. Lando was 5.5 seconds ahead of George in third, and then Lando was then 4.1 seconds behind Oscar. Sorry, I wrote that really weird. And then I said, it looks like Lance and Oscar are having fun, or no. Yeah, Lance and Ollie are having fun on the medium tires. Like, Ollie was just passing left, right, and center. Like, it was so good. This was a funny radio message. Charles was asked not to use some of his, like, the curb. And he just responded, nope.
He is like,
no.
He's like over. He's like, nope. Actually,
like, literally, that's all
I'll use whatever I want. Thank you very much.
Literally. And then I said the radio messages have been gold. Okay. Will comes on again and is telling Lando about rain. I said, Will keeps bringing up the rain to Lando. Doesn't look like it will be much, and only on the last lap. If that happens, it could be wild. Like, seriously, once again, little did I know. Little did anybody know while watching. Lap 47, poor Yuki. He had front wings damage. And Yuki goes, front wing from what? Over the radio.
From what?
It was so funny. Genuinely, nobody knew. And then we went back and watched it. His front wing literally just snapped off. It was, like, insane. All on its own. Nothing happened. He wasn't, like, I mean, he was near other people, but it literally just snapped on its own. Didn't bump anyone. It's crazy. Max continues to close that gap to Charles. And then... This is so funny. Lap 48, I said, truly IDK what those radio messages were between Lando and Will, but now I'm scared. That's when both Lando and Will were talking back and forth with each other. You really couldn't hear much of it. And then finally the commentators came over and are like, Lando's having brake issues. And then that's when I just started freaking out, personally.
Yeah, so little did we know until after the race when, you know, the interviews started happening, is that the reason why Will was being so, like, on it about the rain that was coming is because they wanted Lando to make sure that he was saving his tires and saving his, you know, not pushing too hard, but they didn't want to necessarily tell him that it was the brake issue because they didn't want to, like, panic him. So by withholding that information and instead saying rain, it was able to still keep his pace back a little bit. It also didn't notify the other teams surrounding about his brake issues, and still allowed him to basically do what they wanted him to do without saying, hey, dude, the brakes.
I think it was then, I do believe it was Lando that came over first because he was like, you know, obviously like in this race standing on a breath and stuff, that's why I could understand him. And then he was like, what's happening with my brakes? Like, what am I?
So eventually once he brought it up, then I think they were like, okay, let's tell him.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's fill him in. But I think that's why he was the only person that was really like, hey, rain's
for
going
sure.
on.
I get war flashbacks every time I see Lando's radio message pop up because I'm hungry, and we were getting a ton of them, like so many.
I'm gonna go on a side rant.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so because of this situation, a lot of people on social media after the fact were really annoyed and unhappy with McLaren's strategy and Will and the race engineers, basically for not notifying Lando sooner about the brake issue. It kills me. Yes, McLaren doesn't have perfect strategy. Yes, they've messed up in the past. And yes, they're going to mess up in the future. But they literally pay, like, millions of dollars
Yeah.
to these people to make the right strategy call, I think they're going to make sure that they get the best people in there.
For sure.
And hindsight is 20/20. Like, obviously, after the race, you can say all day, like, this should have never happened and that should have happened. But in this situation, even Lando said this was the right call. And if Lando was, everyone was like, this is an issue for safety. They should have warned him. It could have been dangerous. Like, if Lando was concerned about his safety, or if Lando was that unhappy with his strategy that was being called, I'm sorry, he could go to any team he wanted. Maybe not any team, but most teams would love to have Lando.
Yeah.
Like, take a break. The team is not trying to sabotage Lando. They're not trying to sabotage Oscar either.
No.
They're trying to make sure that they get the most points for both their drivers to be successful.
Yeah.
And obviously one has to be more successful than the other any given race weekend. So let's chill.
Like, you guys, it's race 2, and it was happening at race 1.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you're not gonna have a happy season of watching Formula 1 or genuinely any sport if you're going to keep doing this and being like, oh, they're sabotaging. Oh, this happened to Oscar. Oh, this happened to Lando. It should have been this way. It should have been that way. Like, for sure, like we talked about, we're the first to call out when there are issues.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But then we move on because guess what?
And, like,
again, hindsight's 20/20. We can call out issues after the fact all the time,
Yeah.
but, like, would we have made the same decision if we had all of the data in front of us and we had the knowledge and experience that these people do?
No, truly.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So it really, like, I don't know. It kills me.
And, like,
it kills me.
At the end of the day, it worked out, and Lando finished in the points.
He finished
He
second.
finished second. It got us a McLaren 1-2. Such great points for him in the championship. Such great points for McLaren in the constructors. Like, what did you want to... I also saw people frustrated that he wasn't told to push more before these brake issues were happening. And it's like, did you want him to push so much and then he wasn't able to use his brakes and then he's not finishing at all?
And also, like, we were supposed to know that these brake issues were going to happen.
No, literally.
It's just ridiculous.
So frustrating. And once again, I'm sorry, I don't trust everybody on social media. Sometimes you all sound dumb. And sometimes have I sounded dumb before? Probably. But I'm not going on and saying Lando's being sabotaged every single race or Oscar's being sabotaged.
Yeah, like, you have to learn to trust the people.
No, yeah.
If you're going to be a McLaren fan, or if you're going to be a fan of any team. Like, again, you can be unhappy with people. Do I like James Vowles? No, but, like, you have to trust them. You have to trust that they're going to make the right call, because at the end of the day, why would they be sabotaging one of their own drivers? They want the points just as more than we do.
Yeah, for sure.
It's their livelihood at stake. They get fired if they don't do good.
Literally.
They're going to lose their job. They're going to lose their income. I think they care a little bit more about getting points and being successful about Lando than you do. Genius. I know more about American Girl Dolls than you do, genius.
No, yeah. And just, like, once again, you're not going to have a happy season of watching.
You're going to be miserable.
No, seriously. And that's what I say about being in, like I'm a hater too. But if you're going to be hater this hard and that's all you think about, like, you're having a miserable season of watching the sport.
Yeah. Like, it just feels so much better to, like, I don't know. Like,
why aren't you just celebrating the fact that your driver got second? Or the fact that if you're a McLaren fan through and through, that we got a 1-2.
Right.
Like,
you can dislike teams.
No,
you can dislike things. But, like, if you're more rooting against a team than you are rooting for a team, that's literally, like...
Go ahead and just be a fan at that point.
Yeah.
Like, truly.
Be a fan. Pick one. Pick any of them. Pick and choose. Do one. I don't know.
I am truly sorry. You could probably point this out, but we have a least favorite team. And you could probably slightly pick it out, but we're not harping on it every time.
No. I actually think that most people probably don't know who our least favorite team is.
No, I don't think so.
Let us know if you do know.
Ooh, yeah, if
you all picked up on who our least favorite team is.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know. I'm interested.
Yeah.
But there's definitely hints.
Yeah.
But, like, we're not, like, screaming about it.
No.
So, I don't know. But that was the end of the rant. We'll move on.
For sure. So, back to the race. Oh, I wrote... I truly can't. I might close my eyes for the last 6 laps.
So another thing to note at this point is that Gracie knew that something happened.
Because
I told her, as soon as the race is over, call me and do not get on social media. At this point, she still anticipated that was something during the race. And I was vague enough on purpose
were so vague.
to imply that it could be really bad or it could be... Like, I didn't say if it was good or bad.
No, you said I'm not saying anything.
So, because of that, she assumed the worst. And at this point, thought something bad was going to happen in the McLarens.
Yeah.
And by this point in the race, she's like, oh my God, there's only six laps left. something bad is about
Lando
to happen.
has brake issues.
Lando has brake issues. There's apparently rain on the way. She's like, something's happening. So because of that, she was a little on edge.
No, I was. So my notes are a little like crazy and funny. And then Jack was investigated for forcing Isaac off, and then he ended up getting a 10-second penalty for that. And then I wrote in my notes, they're asking Lando to hold off because of his brake issues. Oh, so this is what we're talking about. Oh my god, before I even knew anything, I said, makes a ton of sense, but I do wish he could give it a go at Oscar. And then, as I'm typing this, and then, like, once again, truly, like, if his brakes are failing, I don't want him to go fighting Oscar. But, you know, just wishing hopeful. As I'm typing this out, Lando's gap to Oscar closes. I'm sure just like something like he got close in a corner or something like that. And I go in my notes, wait, good God, his time is close to Oscar. Please tell me nothing bad happens. Because once again, like
she was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna crash into each other.
No, and then truly I was like, please tell me Lando is not just trying to push and get closer with these failing brakes. He wasn't in this point, but I was
again,
so
she's on edge.
I was so on edge. And then they just as this is happening, Max and Charles are battling for P4. I wrote Verstappen battle, and then they keep telling Lando to ease up, and then I just said, I'm scared. I'm so scared. Max.
I'm scared. I'm so scared.
Like, that's literally all I was doing. Max does eventually pass Charles. Charles tries to go back in and take the place back. They got really close at one point and could have collided. That could have been absolutely insane. Yeah. And then 3 laps to go. Oh, I made a note. Guess what it's about?
Lance?
I said poor Lance. He was doing so good in the beginning, but he couldn't make it back into the points.
He had to get back on those hard tires.
Well, yeah, he couldn't.
I know, but he needed them.
No, I know he did need them. And then Will came over the radio and said the brake situation was critical. My notes go insane once again. And then my last note about the race, I just said yippee.
Yippee.
Because we got a 1-2. Oscar won. He had a fantastic race. Like, just from the beginning, smooth sailing, nothing was going wrong. Like, so impressed.
Flawless.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely just the most impressed with Oscar. And also, he got this win on the 81st day of the year. Once again, I'm pretty sure Sinister, Evil, and Orange, he is heavy into witchcraft. That Oscar.
Do you think it was him or do you think it was Hattie? Hattie did something.
Hattie did something. And Nicole, the whole family.
Oh, yeah, the family. What is their dog? Did you see the signs for their dog?
Basil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will you list off the final results for everyone?
Yes, I will. So, wait 1 second.
Well, I guess we have to for the final results.
Yeah, for the final results. But before then, I wrote in my notes, so this is before, so I wrote Ollie P17 to P10, that's amazing. I was just kind of talking about that. And then going in, finally I get to call Celine.
Ooh, I was so excited, guys. I recorded her reaction to me telling her the news. So it's on TikTok, so go view that. Yeah. But she called me and I was like, hey girl, have you been on social media? She's like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, there was some disqualification. I really dragged it
No,
out.
you did.
I was like, there were some disqualifications. She's like, oh, I think I saw something about Lewis. I'm like, well, there were multiple cars. And she was like, was it Lando?
Like,
was it Oscar?
In the video, because it was from FaceTime, so there was no sound like on either of our ends, you can literally see me mouth, was it Oscar? Was it Lando? Tell me!
And I was like, it was both Ferraris and Pierre. And they so basically they all got disqualified after the race.
Mm-hmm.
Different reasons. Well, so
Charles and Pierre had the same, right?
Charles, I think
they were
so.
underweight.
Yes, Charles and Pierre were both underweight, and then goals. They were both, their cars were underweight.
Yeah.
And then Lewis had a lot of damage to his floor.
Yeah.
So too much
like
damage.
Skid damage.
To the plank. So because of that, all 3 of them were disqualified, which had a lot of, implications that followed. So that caused Haas to get double points. It caused Williams to get double points.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos's first points with Williams.
Carlos's first points for Williams at the expense of Ferrari. Like, you could not write this yourself.
Literally,
the DTS
storybook.
Producers are loving this.
Yep, absolutely. This whole season so far, actually. So it's, and it's obviously great. Like, McLaren's biggest, I think, competitor so far this year. Well, although Mercedes is looking really strong.
Yeah, it's looking really
but
good.
Last year, obviously, we were really, neck and neck with Ferrari. Yeah. So we were pretty excited about that, I'm not going to lie. So go ahead and read the final standings from the race.
Yeah, the standings. So Oscar won, Lando got second, George finished out the podium in third, Max got fourth, Esteban Ocon got fifth, Kimi Antonelli got sixth, Alex Albon seventh. Mm-hmm. Happy birthday, Alex. Ollie Behrman, eighth, Lance Stroll ninth, and then Carlos Sainz 10th. Back to my note about Lance, he did get some points. Thank you, Ferrari.
He's gotten points at every race.
Yes, he has.
Or in Australia and in the sprint race and in today's race.
Mm-hmm. And then let's go over the standings. Yep. So driver's standings, Lando Norris is leading in 44 points. Lando Norris is leading with 44 points. Max is behind him with 36 points. George at 35, right behind Max. Oscar right behind George at 34 points. Kimi 22, Alex 16. Alex Albon has surpassed the amount of points in 2 race weekends that Williams scored at all last year.
The whole season.
The whole entire season. Crazy. Esteban Ocon has 10, Lance Stroll 10, Lewis Hamilton 9, Charles 8, Nico Hulkenberg 6, Ollie 4, Yuki 3, Carlos 1, and the rest have not scored points.
And what about constructors? Do you maybe just top 3?
Yeah, I'll do top 3 for constructors. Excuse me.
Or do top 4 because there's something special in there.
Sure. Top 4 is McLaren. 1 is McLaren at 78 points, Mercedes at 57, Red Bull at 36, Williams at 17.
Williams
Crazy.
In 4th.
Well, I'm going to finish down the line because Ferrari is tied with Williams at 17 points, technically. Mm-hmm. Haas 14 points, Aston 10, Sauber 6, and Racing Bulls 3.
So everyone has points. Except Alpine?
Except for Alpine, yes.
Likely place for them to be.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, fantastic weekend. Before we do our champagne pops and problems, I want to talk about one more rumor.
Yeah, before you get to that rumor, I would also like to say really quick, Esteban Ocon is leading in the standings of the Ferrari engine-powered cars.
Wait, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Isn't that insane?
Whew, man.
Okay,
Haas.
After last weekend, I was like, my Haas P5 in the constructors is looking rough, and after this weekend, I'm like, no, we're getting P5.
We're getting P5.
Yeah.
So there is a rumor that kind of came up from some credible sources after the race and everything. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it a lot in the last episode and a lot even in this episode about how Liam Lawson is not doing what Red Bull thought he would be doing. Mm-hmm. And people talk a lot, there's a curse on the second seat. Daniel Ricciardo left a curse on the second seat. There's just been a lot of issues, and I think it actually comes down to that no matter what, anybody that you compare to Max is not going to be strong.
Yeah.
The car is set up perfectly for Max, and even if the car wasn't set up perfectly for Max, he's still Max Verstappen.
It's a tough
you're going to compare to it. But it's one thing to compare you're not as fast as Max Verstappen. That's one thing to compare. But Liam has very consistently been at the back of the pack for every single session, every single race, every single qualifying. It is, people are like, it's only been 2 race weekends, but the amount of points that they've lost out on mm-hmm. in the last 2 weekends, they are not going to be successful in the Constructors' Cup already if they don't make a change soon. So the rumor is that Honda is pushing, and I think everyone is pushing, but Honda's pushing heavily for Yuki to step into the second Red Bull seat as early as Japan, which is the next race.
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks from now, but it's the next race.
Yeah.
Then the second part of this rumor is where I get pretty confused about. So you would think, mm-hmm. as most mid-season Red Bull swaps go, mm-hmm. is that Yuki would step into the Red Bull seat, and Liam would drop down to the RB seat.
Yeah.
But the rumor now is that RB is going to literally loan out Franco Colapinto from Alpine, who is a reserve driver for Alpine. He drove for Williams last year for half of the season after Logan Sargent left. He's a character that you would hear if you watched last season. They're gonna loan out Franco Colapinto to drive on RB,
which is also crazy because James Vowles talks a lot about how they hope they can get. I guess he talked in the past, not a lot, I would say, Franco back into the Williams program.
Yeah, but there's not really a space for any coming year.
Everything surrounding Franco is so confusing.
It is. And
literally everything.
But people were expecting Franco to take over the RB seat before they announced Isaac, too. Mm-hmm. So he's always kind of been in talks with RB. And obviously he's the reserve driver for Alpine, and right now, before the season started, his name was being thrown around so much about how Jack has a 6-race contract, and that if he's not doing good after race 6, then Franco is going to move in and replace him, and who knows what's going to happen if for some reason Franco does take over the RB seat, and then Jack does so good that they don't, or does so bad that they don't want him to continue after 6 races. Will they pull Franco back? Will they put Paul in? Paul in?
Not to speculate even more, which could absolutely be nothing. Do you think this is why the Alpine has so many reserve drivers? Because they were always in talks of potentially loaning Franco out to RB?
I mean, maybe, but I don't know if Red Bull could have anticipated that Liam was going to have such a poor start to the season, because Liam is a good driver. He did fantastic in the RBs. There's... I mean, maybe as a backup, maybe they were concerned about how Isaac would do stepping into the RP. I don't know, but it is, or maybe it very well could be that that's the reason why Franco ended up signing the contract, is because there's something in his contract that's I can be loaned out to any open seat, basically.
Gosh, maybe.
And I'm sure Franco, if that clause is in his contract, I'm sure he made that really well known to all of the the teams. Yeah, hey, if you need someone, I'm here.
Your man.
Yeah,
I'm your man.
And I mean, already it does. I mean, it does, if they weren't moving forward with Liam, it does obviously make the most sense for Franco. He's driven in Formula One. Mm-hmm. He's proven that he can be successful in Formula One, sure. Rather than bringing in, someone from the Red Bull, driver program. But, again, it just confuses me that they wouldn't even give him a chance.
I do think Lindvald, who they are heavily focusing on, I could be wrong. I don't believe he has his super license yet.
Point? Yeah.
So that could also be another reason why they're calling on Franco. Calling Franco.
But regardless, it blows my mind that they're not going to put Liam in RB if that is the case.
No, yeah, absolutely. That's so bad.
Would you not even want to put him in RB temporarily, and then if he doesn't do good, maybe loan up Franco? And that could be the case. It could be that they are just going to switch him.
Do that same third driver thing that they did with Daniel, with Liam? What are they going to do
then with Liam? Then again, yeah, maybe he's the reserve driver, but who would want to be a reserve driver for a team that's replacing? I mean, I guess an unemployed person. So maybe I get
it. Still want to get employed. I did see on F1, the F1 app, they did an interview with Christian, and they talked about it, and Christian was basically I'll have to go see. Obviously, he's struggling. Christian seemed pretty supportive of Liam.
Yeah, but that was before. That was at the beginning of this weekend.
No, it just came out.
He did another one?
I believe it, yeah.
Okay, because I know he did one at the beginning of the weekend with Ted. Mm-hmm. And then the one with Ted was pressuring him. He was like, "What? Why is Liam doing this?"
Oh, yeah. No, this was a different one for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, that is good. But then again, he was in the media supportive of everybody else that he got rid of the day before. So you can't trust that man.
Thoughts and prayers and everything.
Thoughts and prayers. And nothing could happen. But we've seen rumors, and we've seen rumors come out from sources that have been, I would say, pretty accurate with the rumors. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm thinking it could happen.
I also think there's a good chance these rumors are being heavily pushed just because the Japanese Grand Prix will be Yuki's home race.
Yeah.
And can I be really honest with you? I would like Yuki to do it in the VCARB.
Yeah, honestly...
I get it. I get how special it would be, and I get it's a Red Bull seat, but, the team dynamic over at VCARB has been seeming so much better and happy for Yuki and Isaac than Red Bull.
It's such a double-edged sword, too, because I would love for Yuki to get the opportunity to go in and prove that should have been his seat the whole time.
Yes,
don't get me wrong. But it makes me nervous because what if it literally is, cursed?
No, But if Yuki...
I was going to say, even, another reason why I'm thinking that this rumor could have merit is because before the race, Max also had interviews, and he specifically said, I think Liam would be more successful in the VCARB right now. And most of the time, that's not something Max would go around saying. Max is pretty loyal and supportive of his teammates. He was loyal and supportive of Checo the whole time that he was having some issues. But, Max isn't the type to, say that about his teammate unless there's kind of already been, some talks, and maybe it's, already kind of in the works before the race even happened, and maybe that's why Max felt comfortable enough to make that statement, knowing that Liam knows that something's going on.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
But that makes me think that maybe the rumor is true about Yuki and Liam switching, but I just can't. I don't believe the Franco thing.
No,
but if it happens, I don't
want Franco.
I don't, and I love Franco. I want him to have a seat, but like, just like strategically, it doesn't make sense to me.
No, strategically, it doesn't make sense to me, and then also the part of me that's just so much like believing in like karma. I'm like, in my eyes, like obviously, for sure he's gonna take it if he's offered this.
Oh,
and, like,
yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
but I would too. But then I'm like, whoa, he's gotten seats in some interesting ways.
Yeah, he's making enemies.
He's making enemies, and like I mean, God love you, Logan Sargent. He deserved that seat.
Right.
Yeah.
And Franco did come in and he did really good in Williams. And then the way that he got like the Alpine reserve driver, and then everyone was like, oh, he's taking Jack's spot, and then if he takes over and he takes Liam's spot at VCARB, that boy, he's gonna have to light some candles, I think.
Yeah, he'll have to go to the mosque.
Yep,
no,
for
wait.
sure.
Was that Alex said he went to? Was it the mosque?
A temple, I think.
Temple? I don't know. He'll have to call up his old teammate.
Yeah, he'll have to talk to Alex about that. But all in all, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully we know sooner rather than later. I'm sure that like this off week in between is going to pretty much be a lot of sim practices and seeing how Yuki can handle the Red Bull. But again, I think that Yuki will be more successful in the VCARB because no matter what you get put in the Red Bull, it's going to take more than like a couple of sessions to get up to par on it. Right, even Liam had like testing and shakedown and all of that. Like Yuki's just going to be thrown into it. Mm-hmm. But I really want him to go in and kill it. Like if he does get put in the car, I really want him to just prove everyone wrong, specifically Helmut Marko.
Oh my god, I hate Helmut Marko.
Me too. Hate him.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Champagne pops and champagne problems?
Absolutely.
So once again, if you don't know, every race weekend we do a champagne pop and champagne problem. Champagne pop is for a driver who did like excellent this race. Once again, it's not always going to be the winner.
Yeah.
And then a champagne problem to, sometimes teams, sometimes drivers. I've given it to
sometimes
the FIA
situations. Yeah, the FIA have gotten it. And it's not necessarily their fault. So if we give it to a driver, it's not because it may not even be something that they did. It could have been circumstantial.
Yeah.
So who's your champagne pop?
My champagne pop is Ollie.
I was really expecting you to say Lance.
Yeah, and I know Lance did so well in his time. Honorary champagne pop to Lance for sure. After last weekend and the weekend that Ollie had, so impressive to see. Especially the Haas just in general. P17 is where he started. And then he got into P7. Yes, because of some disqualifications. But great weekend.
Yep.
He had great driving, great overtakes. Funny as hell, too.
Ciao.
Ciao. Champagne pop.
Yep. Okay.
Who's your champagne pop?
I'm going to give it to Oscar.
Good. Yep.
He had a second in sprint. Mm-hmm. He got first in the race. And we didn't talk about him a lot in this episode because he minded his own business.
He minded his own business.
He stayed in his lane. He got the job done without us having to really yap about him too much.
No.
So while we didn't discuss him much, I'm going to give him my champagne pop.
I love that. You gave him a problem last weekend.
I did, and now he's bounced back.
Mm-hmm.
That scared me.
That was my phone calling.
Okay.
Who is your champagne problem?
I think I'm going to give my champagne problem to Ferrari.
Yeah, me too. There's just like...
I mean, a double... You can't not give it to a double disqualification.
Yeah. Sometimes we try to be like, oh, you gave it to this person, do that. No, I think we're going to equally...
We're going to stay firm on this one. You can do Charles, I'll do Lewis, interchangeable.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's a Ferrari. And again, like, they were looking really good during the sprint, and we were concerned because they weren't looking great in Australia. We're like, okay, something's changed. We saw
just, I mean, a bad overall
and
weekend.
It's always something with them too. Like, it's not even a consistent the same problem.
They can't catch a break.
Like, I do feel bad for Ferrari fans.
No, I know.
Like, everyone's like, being a Ferrari fan sucks. I'm like, no, it does. Like, I'm so sorry. Sure. It does.
Yeah, and then people are like, now you understand what Seb was going through in like 17 and 18 when he was battling Lewis for the championship, and it's like, yes, I do.
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
So you know what? We'll see what happens with them in Japan. They've got some time off to figure this out, and
we should have some news coming through in the next weeks or so. We might have some news coming through next weeks or so. I'm really interested about the Liam Lawson situation. We'll definitely keep you updated on TikTok for sure in the middle. We do have an episode coming out next week, even though there's no racing. Yeah. There's no IMSA, there's no IndyCar, there's no F1. So we'll have a fun episode planned for you all. And then the following weekend, the first week of April, we get into Japan. The episode will be late
we'll be out of town.
We'll be out of town, so the episode will be coming, but it'll be coming late.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
It's been a great start to the season.
Great start to the season.
Absolutely.
2 fantastic race weekends full of...
Action,
drama.
Everything you possibly want.
Yeah, it's been good. So, I mean, yeah. Anything else to add?
No.
Okay.
Just happy to be a McLaren fan.
Happy to be a McLaren fan at this current moment.
In this current moment.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you go follow us on social media. Again, we will keep you updated in between episodes on any rumors or drama or announcements that come out. But yeah, just go follow us, and thank you for listening.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.